Christy Oxley, Newest Teachers Union. Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget priorities. I know we have a meeting in April where I can elaborate a little bit, so I'm just going to go quickly through some of the pieces. I also want to note that it was shared that it might be a bit of a tight budget this year, but we're going to throw out our asks anyways. Sort of two big themes. Similar to last year, looking at resources, some of the things that that my members have reached out and said that would really be helpful in terms of looking at workload pieces, and then also some staffing supports. The overall message continuing to be from my members, what we would like to see is the support staff in place so that we can move on with the really important work of working with our students in our classrooms. So would it be okay if I just say next slide and I'll go through them very quickly? Great. So moving on from the summary slide, if we go to the first one, unsurprisingly, we'd like to see additional counselor time at the high school. The high school is moving to a 5-block model next year. We want to make sure that we have enough counseling staffing to cover both the sort of early shift and the late shift. So that's one of the reasons for the ask. And then just the continued hope that we can provide additional actual mental wellness time for students and not have a good chunk of our counseling time taken up from the timetabling pieces. So the actual two asks here, just like last year, we'd love to see another 1.0 FTE in counseling at NWSS to have the load spread out a little bit more. And in addition, see some of that counseling time allotted to international education, which we do have somebody who has that on their caseload now. But again, just looking at spreading that out a bit. And then again, the consideration of additional staffing that could support some of the basic timetabling requests. So our counselors have master's degrees. They've done a significant amount of post-secondary education training in mental wellness. We'd love to see those skills put primarily towards mental wellness pieces. And I do think that there's the opportunity for somebody to be trained to do some things like timetabling supports, adding drop-in courses when it's a really simple piece, offering some support to online learning students in terms of making sure that they're where they need to be so that registration for the next school, I shouldn't use the term registration, course selection, there we go, for the next school year makes sense for them. And then possibly a little bit of that time allotted to the transition from middle to secondary school. Perhaps somebody who can screen through some of the emails that come in and free up our counselors for that. Next slide, please. So Library Learning Commons collections, I think it was actually just last year, we talked about a 3-year cycle for budgeting for our libraries. So encouraging our teacher librarians to look at their collections, come up with a 3-year plan for weeding and then identifying what they need to purchase and getting those pieces in place. And Maureen, before she left, she actually offered some release time for the teacher librarians to do that. In consultation with teacher librarians this year, what I heard is that it's hard to really come up with that plan if you don't know if the funding is going to be in place, but also just a real look at the equity in terms of collections. So this comes down to the resource piece, right? What is taking a lot of time from our members is identifying resources that can be used with their classes. When we take a look at when the redesigned curriculum came out, was it 2016, 2017, we didn't really get that infusion of cash to put resources in place. A lot of our nonfiction collection in our Library Learning Commons has gotten a little bit old. Maybe if we go to the next slide, it gives a little bit of background. So here this is a snapshot from Focused Education of some of the considerations when we're looking at purchasing resources for a Library Learning Commons collection and actually for classroom resources as well. Things that would be considered when we're weeding a collection and also things that would be considered when we're purchasing items. I won't spend too much time here. We can go to the next slide. And this is a bit of a snapshot, and it's really tiny, I apologize. A little bit of a snapshot of the age of our nonfiction collections at the various school sites. So we're seeing that a lot of these books are getting quite up there, 15 or so years old. In a lot of cases, when we're looking at science, for example, we want to see that the currency is close to that 5-year range. So the reason that I'm throwing all this out there is what we see in our libraries is a lot of books and a real reticence to weed and make sure that those outdated materials are gone, because once they're gone, there's not that assurance that we'll be able to replace the materials. The ask here is to consider releasing our teacher librarians to work as a group to identify key nonfiction pieces that should be in every collection, and then they can present that in terms of an ask. I don't actually have a dollar figure on what that would look like, but they could present that as an ask, and then we can look at seeing if we can find some funding to provide those collections for every school library. So really, that's the umbrella ask. It would actually mean a little more consultation once the release time is provided to be able to look at those collections and identify those needs. To the next slide, please. And then here, maybe I'm just using the opportunity to say one more time that we would really like to see the full allotment of LST resource and ELL teachers right from the beginning of the year. We know that sincere efforts are being made, but the combination of not enough people trained in the specialty and ELL resource, all of our non-enrolling teachers being pulled to TTOC, it's created a deficit in this area. And we would really like to see a little bit of funding put towards not only making sure that we have the staffing, but perhaps if we're in a position where it's hard to identify people who have the specialist skills right away, we can be utilizing some of our district staff to pull some of the LST teachers, for example, at the beginning of the year and do some training just to make sure that we have what we need right from the very beginning. Also, I've just come from an EC meeting and I was told that I have to add to this that everybody loves their EAs and would like to continue to see that support in place as well. Next slide, please. So this is probably going to seem rather an interesting ask, especially in a year where we're talking about tightening things up. But again, this speaks to the fact that a lot of teachers are finding that resourcing their classrooms is really, really challenging. And where we've landed in a lot of cases, especially at the high school, I shouldn't say that. I think it's probably all the way K to 12. But from the high school, I'm hearing that teachers are creating their own materials, and that means hours and hours and hours printing it out at the printer. And so when I hear from members that they're coming in really early or they're coming back to the school at 7 o'clock because they figure that most people are gone by then so that they can spend their hour at the photocopier, it's a lot of time. It adds to workload. Also makes me wonder if perhaps there's something we can put in place to eliminate the need. I know there's a serious cost that's involved with having to generate that material every year. So maybe there's a potential to have somebody in place to do some of that printing the way that it used to be. Or maybe this is an opportunity to have a conversation about what resources are needed there. So next slide, please. And I have to mention our mentorship program. So we would love to see additional funding for the mentorship program, in particular, maintaining the mentorship facilitator. I do think in terms of retention and, well, I hope it plays a factor in recruitment, right? Every district is trying to, I'm sure, distinguish themselves, show what they have to offer. But retention, I do know that it was not a program that was in place when I started, and I would have really liked to have had that connection and also the support that's offered for practice. And I think there's one final slide, which shouldn't come as a surprise, that we'd like to see continued improvement to ventilation measures. So every year, starting in about May, might even be a little earlier, I'm told it's very, very, very hot. And anything that we can do in terms of improving that in the portables at School Witch, because it is kind of made of glass, and then certain rooms at the high school. We would like to see that as well. So that's a lot of asks. I do hope that you're able to consider, and perhaps we'll even have some surprises as time goes on that we can fund, right? I don't know if you're wanting to ask questions, if I can
Yeah.
proceed to.
I think if we could just take a minute if trustees had any questions about that. Thank you so much. I would love to know, and I can follow up after, but just the filling LST and ELL teachers, is there any anything in particular that your members are saying would help there?
Yeah, so I know what I know, right? I hear what I hear. I wonder if there was an opportunity for people who want to dip a toe, who don't necessarily have the training just yet. We do have a lot of priority TTOCs, for example, that go into the positions. If there was an opportunity at the beginning of the school year for 2 or 3 weeks for some of our very talented district staff to work with them to make sure that they have sort of a go-to that they can a go-to program that they can put in place at the various schools, that might be really helpful, or some time to work with some of their seasoned colleagues at the schools to know what they can actually be doing in terms of support. I think that might be really helpful. Going back before 2016, when we had no guarantees in the contract, people didn't necessarily look at those pieces, an LST, a resource, an ELL, post back or anything as something viable. So I think we're still playing catch up there.
Okay, thank you very much. Did I see Elliot? Go ahead.
Thanks for your presentation. I just had a question, like looking at the list with the science books, like you were saying, you want them kind of within 5 years, and see some of these are 2001, 2002. And, you had mentioned the tighter budget, which is probably reality. And I don't, hopefully I'm saying the right way, but like if say we couldn't get the exact into all of the schools, is there any chance of like that inter-school sharing to get the current books like they do, like say the public library, where you can request it if the courses are staggered? Like, would that be something that would be beneficial, or is it just kind of like all of them right away?
Right. So in terms of being able to share books between the libraries, I think that's absolutely something that can happen, right? I know Brenda Kwok, who's our district teacher librarian, can help facilitate that. So yes, that's easy. I think what happens is sometimes teachers, if they're going to be using resources from a library in particular, let's say they're planning to do lit circles on a particular topic, they'll flag that ahead of time. They'll talk to their teacher librarian. That teacher librarian will send out an all call. We'll get some books, we'll get them sent. So there's definitely that. In terms of, I'm going to do an inquiry project with my class. I've identified a particular area. My students have brainstormed, come up with their questions. Having that actual collection that they can go to and find the materials, along with digital materials, it becomes a little harder to identify what's in another library and get that sent over. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got Geraldine and then Mark.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the point that you made, Christy, about teachers and the perhaps desire to dip a toe, as you said, into the LST piece. So there have been conversations going on with district leadership to develop a program in-house that would help people to get the skills that they need in order to do that successfully. We know that in other areas in Metro, it's been quite successful. So we are exploring that. So
that's amazing.
We'll keep you posted on how that goes. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Mark, sorry, Trustee Andres.
Okay. I'm just wondering how close we are as a district to maybe having a comprehensive resource acquisition strategy. I'm curious if teachers and departments would be able to, if the district was asking to have like a catalog or list of maybe digital resources that they would like access to. And then, the long term, the district could potentially explore costing of those all at once. I feel like this potentially could reduce costs over the long term if we do have that as part of a strategy. So we're not, in this kind of photocopying whirlwind, fairly dystopian situation. Just wondering, if whereabouts we are in the potential to be able to do something like that, and maybe teachers putting that forward.
Just wondering if that's a superintendent question or a NWTU question.
So there are conversations happening at the senior leadership table around considering a couple of things. So one is a scale of issue conversation around, do you have a list of what is supposed to be standard in every classroom, and that's provided by division so that schools aren't looking for ways to have those things. And then we're also having conversations about how do we roll out division-supported resources. We hear from teachers, what is it they need in order to support their work, and then provide those resources to classrooms across the system and support, in turn, professional learning conversations where they're engaged with resources that they help pick and so on. Obviously, the money is a challenge, and we'll see what happens in the grants on Thursday. But a goal of ours is to support that, because I will share with you that when I go from school to school, I hear the same thing. High school teachers and elementary teachers alike speaking to the need for digital resources and tangible resources that can be with them year over year. And it's certainly something as a system that we're talking about. How do we do that well to address Trustee Andre's question so that we're not buying 19 different versions of things? How do we do it in a way that is economical and supports practice? So yeah, we're on it. Now, how fast we get to move will be in part dependent on the priorities established by the board in the budget process and what we hear on Thursday. But we hear you.
Thank you. Trustee Connolly.
Thank you for this. I'm just wondering around the additional counselor time. If there has been, I'm just throwing a question back at the teachers union, if there has been some advocacy around this to the province to help fund a better ratio, because I know in New West, I'm not saying what, we haven't had our budget discussions yet or recommendations, but I do know that we surpass the funded ratio of student to counselor. So I'm curious if that's something that your group does as well, like advocating for a change to those ratios.
I guess, yes, right? I know that we're keenly interested in the election promise that talked about additional counselors and one counselor for school. Happy to also be engaging in some of that potentially when we go to Victoria. But yes, there has been not necessarily from the NWTU specifically, but from the BCTF, right? A lot of advocacy around the counselor piece.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much to you and best of, Trustee Carlson.
Thank you for this presentation. I also wanted to thank you for acknowledging the education that counselors go through and the training they get with mental wellness. I'm hoping we can find a way to have the scheduling shared with others. And I think that's a question to have here, but I really acknowledge and thank you for sharing the education that these people have to work with our children.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. We're going to switch order actually and go next to QP 409, if that's okay. President Carrie Andrews.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide some input to the 2025-2026 budget. QP truly appreciates the opportunity to be involved in this. I do have a lot of asks course, I am aware of the budget and, things that are happening. So I'm going to start with the increased staffing and funding for Indigenous support workers. The Indigenous support team is requesting the establishment of a special events fund to attend or host cultural events that will enhance professional learning and growth. Additionally, QP 409 is requesting the hiring of at least 2 more Indigenous support staffs. We hear from our members quite often that they feel like they're spread out and they're not able to fully support a lot of the students they need to support. Our next ask is increased hours for child and youth care workers. Our child and youth care workers currently work 30 hours a week, which limits their ability to connect with parents and run inclusive programs that help build relationships with the students who need them the most. It makes them unavailable for after school time, where parents are more available to meet with and connect with. So with the additional 5 hours per week, they would have more time to meet with parents and provide those extra services to the students outside of regular school hours. At NWSS, the loss of the outreach program space has resulted in a significant decline in students accessing the services they need. QP 409 strongly encourages the district to provide a dedicated space to properly support these students and ensure staff are able to support them in a confidential and trusting environment. What we're hearing a lot is the kids used to be able to go to the one room and be able to check in, say, how's it going, grab some snacks and be able to sit and chill, and they felt really comfortable there. With the loss of that, they're noticing a decline in the students coming to see them. So we'd like to see that come back for them. Clerical staff for IT and maintenance department. So QP 409 would like to first acknowledge the cyber attack on our school district this past November. At the 2024-2025 budget request, QP 409 put forward a request to implement an Office 365 backup system, which could have prevented the significant cost and time lost as a result of the attack. As the demand for technology continues to grow in our schools, the IT department is requesting the addition of a clerical staff member to help manage schedules and ensure that technology needs are addressed in a timely manner. This role would also handle smaller tasks such as password changes to improve efficiency. Additionally, the position could assist the maintenance clerical team with facility rental bookings, offering valuable support across both departments. The next one is the ECE programs. New Westminster School District has added several solutions to the much needed childcare crisis in BC, with the implementation of a manager of childcare, adding multiple seamless day childcare sites, strengthening the popular Strong Start programs, adding the Before program, and offering after-school care pilot program through the district. QP 409 would like to request the district continue supporting these programs by adding more staff to support the growth and popularity of these programs. QP National actually has an active campaign on childcare. And from what I've been told is that we can use them to enhance and promote the childcare programs in New Westminster. Next one is the custodian workloads. Huge conversations I had with custodians while I was doing a little bit of campaigning. And one of their biggest concerns was their workloads and the lack of consideration of the additional spaces that were added. I don't know if it's been considered, but from their feelings. And the time it takes to go from the main building out to the different portable areas, and how they really feel that the increased workloads have affected the ability to maintain that high level of cleanliness that they try to make sure they're obtaining. Some of the schools where they're seeing more of the pressures, or seem to be, is the schools, Cookite, Lord Kelvin, Fraser River, and Tweedsmuir. They've seen the largest increase of additional spaces, several portables and classrooms at these sites. Adding an additional custodian would greatly alleviate some of the pressure and help ensure that a higher level of quality of cleanliness is consistently maintained across the district. In addition, we are requesting the addition of a daytime custodian. This would help alleviate the workload by addressing lighter cleanings throughout the day, allowing the evening custodial time to focus on deeper cleaning when there are no students in the building. Lastly, we have education assistant supports and increased hours. QP 409 is requesting additional minutes for education assistants at the elementary school level. Specifically, we are asking for an extra 20 minutes per day per individual to allow more time for preparation for the day, to have additional supervision on the grounds, ensuring safety of the students when coming and going from schools, the additional time to provide additional support beyond regular school hours. A lot of the times, some of the younger kids, parents are running late, something's going on, the child's not quite ready to go. These are all additional minutes that a lot of the EAs put in. As the largest support staff group in New Westminster Schools, QP 409 is also requesting the creation of an EA mentorship position at our largest sites, including NWSS, Lord Calvin, and Kakite. This role would combine both mentoring and leadership responsibilities. The individual in this position would support administration and daily assignments, mentor new education assistants, new site orientations, and assist with the LST resource team in developing and implementing program materials. Additionally, they would help with EA placement and serve as a representative for support workers on site. This is quite similar to the EA lead hand that was mentioned at previous years. Over the years, QP 409 has raised concerns about the NWSS Inclusive Education Department's Life Skills Program, which no longer has the necessary physical infrastructure to effectively teach essential life skills to those students. Currently, these students are using staff break spaces and Indigenous ed rooms to avoid disrupting classes in the home economics rooms. The program urgently needs equipment such as stove, oven, fridge, dishwasher, washer, dryer, and a sink to properly teach the daily food cycle, including cooking, cleaning, food safety, and nutrition. There used to be a program at NWSS that was a fantastic life skills program. I worked at it. I've seen the skills these students developed from that. They learned how to grocery shop, budget money, and do cooking, cleaning. It was a great life skill. It's sad to see that program's gone. And QP 409 really wants to see that come back for them. Just want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much. That's great. Super comprehensive. Any questions or comments from trustees? And will we have you've sent them to us in writing, I think, and we'll be able to distribute them with the minutes? Yeah, awesome. Any questions? Trustee Carlson.
Yes. I'm not sure who has the answer to this, but I'm wondering what the cost is with the addition of 5 hours per week for the child and youth care workers.
Yeah, I think, yeah, all of these items we could, trustees could maybe flag those that or all that they'd like to have costed, and we can ask for that to come back to the trustee in service. Thank you. We have a CYC would be extra $200 a week approximately. Great. For the video, that's the CYC is saying it's extra $200 per week. Thank you, approximately. Awesome. Right from the expert. Okay, well, thank you so much, QP 409. Secretary Treasurer Ketchum.
Yeah, just thank you, Carrie, for your presentation. Just wanted to clarify as part of the letter, a statement in here indicating that an Office 365 backup would have prevented significant costs and losses. I'd just like to state that while we appreciate and are looking into that 365 backup, that actually the experience that we had earlier this year would not have been prevented by implementing that. I just wanted to, for the clarity of the report, just state that.
Yep, fair enough. Thank you. Okay, we are at DPAC Chair, Laura Kwong.
Thank you. Good, put Tina a second there. Hi, my name is Laura Kwong, and I'm the chair of the District Parent Advisory Council. Thank you for the opportunity to share budget priorities and requests from the parents and caregivers of ST40. Next slide, please.
As we solicited feedback from PACs and from parents and caregivers, we were mindful to ensure that our budget priorities and requests are in alignment with the district's framework and realistic to the current challenges public education is facing right now. So we just wanted to start with that. We hope to stay within this framework that you've generated. Next slide, please. And we understand that cuts to the budget are likely required, and we request that any proposed budget reductions have the least possible impact on students, particularly vulnerable learners, and that decreases are instead made to areas with known limited impact on student success and well-being. Next slide, please. So if we were to make just one request only, it would be this. And that FTE ratios for staff that support vulnerable learners and learners who require additional supports to access education and learning opportunities remain unchanged or better. Ratios considered district-wide and across elementary and middle and secondary is what we're asking about here. So for EAs, that was the #1 priority we heard from parents and caregivers, maintaining the current ratios of EAs in schools across the district and in classrooms. Next slide, please. We are also asking to protect Strong Start programs and other early intervention programs. We have witnessed cuts to these programs in other districts in order to balance their budgets for this coming year, as these programs operate at a deficit because of the dedicated funding provided by the province not covering their full costs. However, we know that the benefits to families are too valuable to cut these programs. We are also asking to protect non-enrolling classroom spaces such as art rooms, music rooms, and gyms for their intended use. The capacity crisis we're facing, coupled with the budgetary impact of portable purchases, may make repurposing these spaces attractive options. Removing these spaces from schools, though, ultimately diminishes the quality and breadth of student learning experiences. Next slide, please. We have witnessed the impact of cooperation between the city and the school district regarding traffic safety and transportation to and from schools, and that's positive impact, I should state. And we'd like to ask for the continuation and matching for funding for 3 walking school bus routes for this coming year, and where possible, additional crossing guards to support safe and active transportation options for students and their families. A continuation of investment in student and staff well-being. We have a secondary priority ask of monitoring and improving indoor air quality in main school buildings and in portables. We know the district is meeting the standards set out by provincial bodies regarding air quality and HVAC requirements. There is a growing body of research showing that the impact of improved air quality above these minimum standards can have an impact on staff and student absentee rates and student outcomes. Next slide, please. And these 2 asks have come directly from parents and caregivers through our PACs a number of times over this past year. These are areas that parents and caregivers would like to see further investments made. With additional federal funding for school food programs, we hope to see the food program, maybe some changes such as adding sides and beverage options might be on the table this coming year. And that's something that's really valuable to families in our district. As well, transitions from elementary and middle, and then middle to secondary school have been identified as an area where students and their families are needing additional support right now, guiding their students through these transitions. Next slide, please. Teacher recruitment and retention is an ongoing issue, not just for our district, but other districts as well. And we know that peer support can play an important role in retaining teachers. We would like to see the continuation of the NWTU mentorship program and the continuation of the SOGI lead hours, as they are critical for supporting administration and teaching staff in our schools. And then secondary ask number 9 there, an informed public can provide valuable input and advocacy for our district's capacity needs. But this starts with providing meaningful engagement opportunities and widely disseminating information on school planning. And we are asking for investment and communication with the SD40 community, as well as the broader New Westminster community where feasible. Next slide, please. Lastly, we recognize the need for district staff and the board to make some tough choices for this coming year and future years, and we offer 2 strategic trade-offs in this regard. We recommend pausing technology refreshes and reviewing administrative structures for efficiency in favor of our primary asks. Next slide, please. Ultimately, the structural deficit we are facing is not just a district issue here. It's a province-wide problem. Provincial funding has not kept pace with inflation and has failed to account for a number of items in our budget and other districts' budgets. Cuts to district budgets are redefining what public education looks like in BC today. Districts are losing fine arts programs, high-performing academic programs, alternative programs, and more students are learning in portables than ever before. Right now, our students are relying on successful advocacy from our Board of Education, the BCSTA, BCTF, and parents to hopefully beg enough to get the funding needs that our district needs. Our students deserve safe, well-resourced learning environments that set them up for success. And I will get off my soapbox and finish by saying thank you to the board for this opportunity to provide input from parents and caregivers. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Very helpful and informative. Trustees, any questions of clarification? Trustee Connolly.
I'm just wondering, this is more for the Secretary Treasurer with regards to the ask number 3 in protecting non-classroom spaces. I know we had received a report at one point about what spaces at various schools had transitioned from music room or art room, that type of thing, to classroom. I don't know how things have changed and maybe if we're due for another report out to that effect.
Based on our planning to date and based on current enrollment as we see it, we're not anticipating any modifications to school for non-enrolling spaces for this year.
That's good news. Any other
Okay.
questions, comments? Okay, thank you so much. That's really, really appreciated. And Principals and Vice Principals Association, Principal Millard, come on up.
Thank you. I just want to take a few moments of your time just to say a couple of things. First of all, that we, as principals and vice principals, and I'll be speaking on behalf of them tonight, we acknowledge and understand your task at hand right now, and balancing the budget for the upcoming school year is not easy. It's going to be a challenging one, and considering the excellent points and presentations that you've heard already this evening, it's a tough job, and so we understand that, and we thank you for your work on that. The second thing I just wanted to say is that on behalf of the Principals and Vice Principals Association, we do want to offer our deep appreciation for the increase in BP time that you approved mid-year this year. It has made a significant difference in the jobs and the life of vice principals and indirectly principals. The work they do is important, as you know, and it involves organizing, leading, caring, helping families, assisting students, goes on. And as I think we're still the fastest growing district in BC, but it's definitely has been a challenge, and this has made an incredible difference. So we thank you for that, and we just want to say that we appreciate your trust and confidence in the work that we do. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We feel the same way. Yeah, and really appreciate the hard work every day the principals are doing to keep schools going. That gets to the end then of our budget presentations, and we do not have any delegations today. There's a letter under correspondence, which is attached, and I think there was maybe some discussion on this item. Trustee Connolly.
Yeah, I would just ask that we remove the line, New Westminster Schools is not requesting a school in Queensborough at this time. It's in our 5-year capital plan submission that we actually are asking for site acquisition and a new school in Queensborough.
Okay, I hear the point. I'll just say the letter was written with the intention that the call for a high school in Queensborough, which is understood, it comes with the risk of pulling our district off of the immediate and urgent priority asks that we have. The reality is, if an ask for a high school at Queensborough becomes, it gets to the top of our list, that will impact getting funding for our next elementary school at Simcoe or middle school. You guys know the list. So I guess it's up to the board, but I would say I have met with the Minister of Education. I've met with the Minister of Infrastructure twice. And at this point, I am not asking for a high school in Queensborough, because we need to get the elementary school and middle school built. You're absolutely right. It's in our 5-year capital plan. So I guess I defer to the board if people would like that correction. That's something we can certainly do.
I think the spirit of the letter is the same. It's just the facts are proper by removing that one line. So I would put forward a motion asking that we strike that line and resubmit the letter.
Kate, yeah, it's been moved. Do we want to get a seconder, and then we can, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Mark, Trustee Andres, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Chair, I really appreciate that focus, and I think it is really important that we are consistent with our asks to the ministry. But I do agree with Trustee Conley that, the wording is really clear in our long-range facility plan on page 47. And we haven't had a chance to update this plan yet, which is on our list to do. I think we had agreed it was every 18 months. So I believe this is something that's in the works. Just at this time, as we haven't changed the wording in the long range facilities plan, I do support just removing that one line at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Trustee Carlson.
Thank you. I'll just say I'm in agreement with, because it was in our capital plan.
Okay. Yeah, Trustee Connolly.
Just for further rationale as well, I think it's important as the city, looks at their OCP that it's really clear, if we go to them after and say, well, no, we have in our capital plan asked for this, they could hold this up for the record saying, well, you told us prior that you're not asking for it. These are things that we're thinking out long term, but I don't think it changes the spirit of the letter. And I understand what the board had asked, that yes, we focus on our priorities. But I do think it's important to ensure the facts are presented accurately. So thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Sluice.
I'm just wondering if I might propose a friendly amendment rather than striking the statement, just replace requesting with not prioritizing.
Do you want to move that amendment? Thoughts and feelings? Okay. We'll call that, Trustee Sluice spoke to it, so we should probably call that moved, and then I need a seconder. You can second it now. Okay, moved and seconded to change that to not prioritizing. Trustee Connolly?
I think we're just getting down in the weeds here, because I think in the very next sentence it says our priority in Queensborough has been to complete the expansion. I think we spell out our priorities very, very well in this letter. In the next paragraph as well, the urgent priorities include. So I don't understand the rationale in changing the word. I think if we just strike New Westminster Schools is not requesting a school in Queensborough at this time. So I don't support the amendment.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we're going to go to the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion's defeated. Back on our main motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yeah, sorry, we're on the main motion, which is to remove that line from the letter. Yeah. And to resend, yeah. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you. Board committee reports. I don't think we have any reports for this meeting from our coordinating committee yet, and probably, I think that one will report out at our next meeting. Thank you. Okay, then we're at reports for senior management, and Dave Crow is here to give us an update on the NWSS Memorial Park.
Good evening, everyone, and here tonight to present the long-awaited final version, or we believe to be very close to the final version of the plan for the Memorial Park on the New West the old New West Secondary site that we demolished. You'll notice that it's very, very similar, if not somewhat identical, to the plan we've shown for several years, that we've had in the works for several years. But as I stated in my last presentation, we were really struggling to put together a plan that was on budget. So that's what's taken so long for us to tweak it and still maintain the integrity of the intent of the Memorial Park, but get it back to budget. And we believe we've accomplished that. Of course, you never know until you actually send it out onto the street and test it, but certainly preliminary quality surveyor information that we've been getting back has indicated they believe it will come in at or slightly under budget. So a couple of highlights, I guess, I wanted to point out to folks, and I don't know whether this will show up on the screen, but does it show up there? There it is. Yeah, no, that's a couple of things I wanted to highlight is the new entrance into it, which you've heard me talking about. This is the current entrance that used to go into the turnaround in front of the old school. What we've done is moved it slightly north and created this new entrance here. It's just across from Dublin Street, as you can see there. But we did that in order to maintain the integrity of this sort of sacred or feature place. This is where the plaque is going to be. The plaque is going to be right in there, and I'll have a picture of that in a second on another slide. But it really is the initial feature of the site for this phase one part of the proposal. The rest is these berms that we've created here. These are sort of rolling hills and berms. They're not quite as large as we had originally planned. Again, that was in order to value engineer this back to budget. But we still think that they'll be attractive as well as discourage the kind of uses for this area that are not allowed under the Cemeteries Act. Things like playing fields and soccer pitches and those kinds of things are not allowed under the Cemeteries Act. So we have to discourage that as much as possible. We will have these kind of connectivity MUPs, we call them, multi-use paths along here. This is those are familiar with the site, is a lock block wall there. The plan is in the future that lock block wall will be a fantastic place to put storyboards as you walk down through the eras that this Memorial Park represents. That unfortunately won't be part of phase one, but we're building the infrastructure behind it so that when we ever get additional funding, that would be a really great place to enhance this the area. So the area here, though, will be, as you can see, it's a large number of trees. The area immediately around it will be done in what they call meadow grass. So it gives it a little bit of character, as well as some low shrubs, which will be in this area here. And there'll be benches and seats, and also pedestal lighting will be in this area here. Lighting, the other lighting that we'll have will be lighting along this wall that I just mentioned. There'll be string lighting, it's called under there, but it's not the kind of construction string lighting. It's much more attractive than that. And it'll be really a nice sense, a nice feel for this type of an area. It'll give you that sort of solemn feeling, and hopefully make a great destination place for people to go and reflect on the meaning of this particular park and the various stakeholders that this park represents. And there's lighting also along here as well, which will enhance the look of it, as well as the safety factors. We're obviously concerned about this becoming a tent city or something like that, and that's another reason for the berms. I think that'll discourage that type of activity, as also make it a much more attractive space. As you probably know, the city of New Westminster now, of course, owns the Massey Theatre and a property line around there. So they're contributing to this part of the project. They're going to do a little more grandiose landscaping than we can afford. They have managed to secure additional funding, but it will blend in with our space here. So they haven't finished their actual landscape plan yet, but it'll greatly enhance the look that we have. So we'll be taking advantage of that, of their funding that they've received to do that renovation. Could you go to the next slide? It just highlights that's the area there. This is sort of the feature area, gives you a better shot of what it's going to look like. Everybody keeps asking me about, have we maintained the same amount of parking on the site that we've always had? And the answer is yes. We've got about 325-ish stalls, which has been the commitment for stalls on the site for many, many years. They're situated in a little bit different places. They've been distributed slightly differently, but the numbers are very much the same. And the last but not least is the plaque. And yeah, there you go. And that's the plaque with the storyboards on it. And that will be located in that circle area that I just showed you. Tremendous amount of work and effort went into the wording on these plaques. We reached out to many stakeholders, most of which were through our MAC committee that you've heard us talk about. And we got input from many different stakeholders, as well as historians. City of New West also had input into it. And we think we've done our very best to have a meaningful storyboard there, at least as our first phase, and hopefully perhaps in the future, for if there's additional funding or additional ambassadors to take over this property, it's a great starting point, and I think it reflects the intent of it. That's basically my 5-minute presentation. Certainly willing to take any questions or comments or concerns through the chair.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave. I welcome trustees now to let's get the questions out. We know you're out and about in Safeway and you are asked about the project. So we might as well, I think, have any of those conversations here. We're getting close to actually having something that looks like a park. So it would be good to be able to answer the questions and field any of the discussions we've been having. Trustee Carlson.
Thank you for this. My question, when I look at the entrance, is that close to where the roundabout used to be, or is it closer? Exactly where the roundabout is. Okay, thank you. And my other question, and I'm not sure if you know this, do you know where the city secured the funding from?
I do not.
Trustee Andres.
It's really exciting. I think this is before my time, but this has been ongoing for what, 8 years, 7,
about 10
years. Yeah. I think it's just really exciting for the project to kind of come to completion. You know, this when I got introduced to this, I was really surprised, right, to find the number of people's remains who are, still interred on this land and will remain interred on there probably for a very long time. And so I think just this really meets kind of the goals of this project, of being a respectful place where people are going to remember a part of our history that we aren't proud of, but that happened. And we made a decision well, the people before me made a decision to respect and honor that. So thank you for your work and bringing this to life and really making it into a meaningful space. Moving on to my second part of this, obviously there's going to be costs associated with maintaining this, and I do have concerns about the district's capacity to manage costs long term associated with this, and I'm wondering if we do from district staff have a plan to try to pursue potentially new relationships to maybe share some of those costs now that the park will be completed and people will be able to see the space and potentially some of those partner groups that Dave mentioned may be willing to share some of those costs.
Superintendent Davidson.
So I know that over time there have been overtures to try and get folks to join us in shouldering those costs. And no well, now that there's berms, maybe they'll go for it. But so far, people have not been anxious to share the burden with us, the cost of maintaining the space. That doesn't mean we wouldn't welcome partners and certainly reach out, continue to reach out. But thus far, we haven't been successful.
Trustee Connolly.
I'm just wondering where we're at with the RFP for the development of the berms.
We're scheduled to finalize the design and drawings in the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll get it out by we'd like to see it out by the 1st of April, or even sooner if we can.
Okay, because I think there's some dialogue happening in camera that I won't get into right now around that site. So, thank you.
Trustee Slin.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for your work on this. It's really cool to see it come to fruition. I didn't know what a berm was, so I just Googled it real quick. I was like, okay.
That's a hill.
Yeah, it's a hill. All right. Fancy word. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for your work on this. And I'm hoping that we can, get students out there just to kind of walk them through the space when it's completed and just kind of tie the park and the school and the area together, so that there's also that lack of better word, there's that ownership from the students also, and that reciprocal, kind of sense of respect of the area, so that they have a buy-in on it as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, we're very much aware also that we've designed that feature area that I'm talking about, that circle area where the plaque is going to be. That is really a learning space. It's an extension of the high school. And we're seeing it as that, and we've been working with some of the high school folks to promote that, and they see that as a learning space. What a great place to go to do readings or poetry or those kinds of things. It's a great space for that, and that was intentionally created that way. So,
thanks, Dave.
I'm just gonna throw out, because I know I have been asked, so I'm just gonna ask it. Why the district is we're constrained for space. We don't have we have a area site deficit of 31 acres. So people ask me, why can't we use this as green space? Why can't we use it as playing fields? Why can't we put portables on it? I have my own answers for that, but I wonder if you would want to field that one.
Yeah, it's a large portion of this, of course, is a designated cemetery and falls under the Cemeteries Act. And the Cemeteries Act is quite descriptive of what the kinds of uses that an ex-closed cemetery can actually be used for. And it's very defined, and specifically things, as I mentioned before, like soccer pitches or baseball diamonds or those kinds of what I'll call them active activities are prohibited over top of a cemetery. That's where the passive park concept comes in, which is what we have created. You're allowed to use it for a place of contemplation and a place sort of refuge, if you want to call it that. But sports fields and things like that, it's specifically prohibited. Can you get permission to change that? The answer is there's processes that you could embark on, but which we've checked with the cemeteries folks, and they said the likelihood on this particular cemetery, because of the history of it, it would be very, very slim that you would ever be able to change those. Was and is a major cemetery in province of British Columbia. It's one of the first cemetery by definition, and it holds a lot of history. There's a lot of people connected to it, as we know, whether our MAC committee was 33 different stakeholders, including many First Nations folks, as well as Chinese benevolent associations and many others. And they're, in order to convince them that for an alternate use of it would be extremely difficult to do.
Thank you, Dave. That is helpful. Because I know those questions arise, so appreciate that. I had a couple of really quick, technical questions. Just pedestal lighting. Can you, is that up lighting or down lighting? Because I would love to reduce light pollution while being safe.
That's right. Yeah, the idea is that the lighting would spill out onto the map or the MUPs, the multi-use paths, as well as have some overhead lighting that would just give you dispersed light. The idea is to try to get enough light without making it look like a carnival, because it's not that type of space, but get enough light so that it's safe for people walking through it at night, and it sort of follows SEPTED regulations for lighting, so that people can't hide in the bushes and not be seen or not easily be seen. So it gives you somewhat the best of both worlds, because it does give you up and then place lighting. So.
Thank you. And then I noted the chain link fence at the back of the main area between the what is now a soccer field and the berm area. Thank you.
It's going to be fenced all the way around.
Okay, I think we had originally envisioned more of a space that people could move through more freely, but would love your thoughts on how we landed here.
We'll have openings in the fence that'll connect to the multi-use paths for the access into the park. These areas here, this is the bike lane that goes across the front of the school, front of the MIT building, continues down here and connects to the Dublin Greenway. The city of New Westminster was very interested in that. So it gives connectivity from Dublin Street right through past and connects to our existing, or the one that we built in front of the high school here. That's that two-way bike path that goes all the way to 6th. So there'll be access through there. There'll also be access in through here, and access through this is of course the existing parking lot. This is the existing parking lot. So you'll be able to come in here and have access to the park. But the reason we want to fence it is, again, to delineate the space as a cemetery, which the Cemeteries Act requires. And secondly, to discourage any notion of people going in there with motorbikes and cars. You know, we actually have that problem in some of our other schools. So we felt that a fence was really, really required in order to maintain that segregation, if you want to call it, between the two entities.
Trustee Slime.
Yes, sir. You mentioned lights, and that just sparked something in my mind. Like, so for example, at Moody Park, sometimes the lights shut off at a certain hour. Are these lights that are planned to stay on like throughout the night?
They
like
will be
24 hours
controlled, but we haven't, that's an operational issue. We haven't,
Okay.
we're not at that level of detail yet.
Okay.
But no, they would probably be on overnight, again, because it's a safety factor.
Yeah.
The city bylaw people now want to be able to see if anyone is camping out on it or doing any sort of illegal activity on it.
Yeah.
So I would suggest more than likely they would be on all night.
Yeah.
But we're not quite at that level of operational detail yet.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Trustee Sluice.
Thank you. Dave, I don't think that you came to us for design advice, but the fence is throwing me off. The chain link fence is really throwing me off. Like, can we
It's
think
actually,
about whether we could get rid of the chain link and just have the like lower bars or something? Like, why
will-
a chain link fence?
it will be it cost.
Yeah,
It fits the budget. And it won't be chain link fence like a jail chain link fence. It'll be black. which we use in all of our schools, and it makes a big difference in terms of look. It's practical. It's zero maintenance. You know, it's extremely easy to maintain. We were talking about one of the issues we've had with this is trying to build a site that has extremely low maintenance costs, and because of the hits to the operating budgets for maintaining this. So it's a fence that checks all those kinds of boxes.
Yeah.
That's the reason for it. And I think the other, the landscape architect is talking about putting growing medium throughout the fence, so vines that will go through it. Now that will take time, but it does green the space up as well. So we are planning on doing that. And on the area where it's right beside maintenance IT building, as much as we love our maintenance IT building, it's not the greatest view of the thing to look at when you're standing in the, so we will be actually putting shrubbery up against the fence there to sort of hide the fence. Now, again, it will take time before that matures, but so that'll enhance the look of, it won't look like a stark chain link fence.
Trustee Carlson.
Now you've got us on this roll, this fence roll. I'm just thinking of chain link fences through the city and how often there's advertisements put on them. It's for a cemetery. Will we be able to stop that? Yeah, that's my concern.
That's the same as the issue we have in all of our schools. We have to control that. There is cemetery designation signs that will have to go up on the chain link, identifying the fact that it is a cemetery, and the signage has these characters that show all the kinds of different things that are not allowed on it, such as playing ball and those kinds of things. And that fence is required under the Cemeteries Act, so that people do know that it's a cemetery, and you have to place them around the cemetery. I'm way over my 5 minutes.
It's not your fault. It's all good. I think people were on it to talk about it. I guess one last thing was when we were involved with the advisory committee, the hope, I think, of so many people who participated was that this would be a place of learning. So I guess to Associate Superintendent Lawler and Superintendent Davidson, if there's any ability to extend, use that space, I think that the hope of those who participated would be that students would use that and would bring some of those stories to life, that it would be a gathering, a place of learning and life. And then I know that there was a gardening club at the high school that was very keen about whether they could they do something with gardening boxes. So just putting in a plug for that if appropriate.
Absolutely. I think the cultural significance of the space is something to be part of programming across the system. I don't know what the rules are about gardening boxes. If it's above grade, I don't know what the rules are there.
They would be allowed under it. The problem is always maintaining them. One of the things that we were not able to afford it is irrigation. There's no water out on this site. That's why we're choosing meadow grass and grasses that are drought tolerant. So when you start talking about other types of floral boxes and things like that, they'll never survive. So you'd have to consider all of those kinds of things. We are looking at, there's been some groups that have approached us for putting some benches in that they would sponsor. So we are investigating that. We have got a few benches that are within the budget that we'll be putting in, but we may have opportunities to get some others as well.
Great. Did I see another hand? Yeah, Trustee Connolly.
I'm just wondering about the slab on grade under berm area, because I thought that we were leaving that exposed and almost making like an outdoor classroom was one of the presentations I recall.
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the early plans. It was an idea we had, and we determined that it wasn't. wasn't going to look the way we had thought it was going to look. When the landscape architect started looking at the fit, they said, no, this isn't going to work. So they recommended that we continue the theme of the more green space. We went over top of those to make the more garden space that we have.
Okay, I think this is a bit of the problem I've had with this process, is that there have been so many changes, and I was telling, under the impression that there was going to be this outdoor kind of classroom learning space where kids could actually go and, a whole class could go out there and utilize the space. So that's quite disappointing to hear, actually, that that's been changed.
Yeah, we've accommodated that in the area that I was talking about where the sign is where the classroom space, if you want it, gathering space is.
Okay. Superintendent Davidson.
Just want to say I'm pretty new to British Columbia, but the notion that you have to put in drought resistant grass kind of cracks me up a little. I'm just saying.
That comes standard. That comes standard in Southern Alberta. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you, trustees, for your thoughtful questions and comments. Appreciate the update. Okay, we are at the 2025-2026 district calendar approval item, whereby every year I look at where Halloween falls. So over to you, Associate Superintendent Lawler.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm presenting to you the 2025-2026 district calendar for board approval so that we can take it to the next step, which would be then to, at the end of March, submit it to the Ministry of Education and Childcare for their review and approval.
Great, thank you. This one looks very similar to previous years. Do we have any questions? No, the vacation, spring breaks align with other districts and all of that we normally do. That's great. Any further discussion? If not, we're going to go to the recommendation that the Board of Education of School District Number 40 in Westminster approve the 2025-26 district calendar as presented. Can I get a mover? Thank you. Seconder, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. And now Secretary Treasurer Ketchum is going to walk us through the survey results for 2025-26 budget engagement.
Thank you, Chair. Included in your packages is a brief background or highlighting some survey comments, themes that we heard across some open-ended questions that participants were able to put forward. I'll cover off those in a minute. We also have tonight a number of graphs that were exported from our tool that collected the survey data that I will walk you through, just highlighting a number of priorities that respondents had indicated that they would like to see considered for the 25-26 budget. Happy to say this was another successful public participation engagement as it related to the budget. We opened the budget survey on February 10th. It was open for about 11 days or about, over a 2-week period. And we had over 1,000 responses, which is excellent to see. As I noted, we have a couple of themes, and I'll cover some of those off. So under the lens of staffing and professional development, just a note for a hope to see increased staffing and provide improved teacher professional development opportunities. On the lens of student safety and transportation, just ensuring students are safe as it relates to heavy traffic areas, and a desire to expand programs such as the walking school bus and bike routes for students to get safely to school. From a facility and infrastructure improvement perspective, no surprise there, a concern by most about the overcrowding we're seeing in schools and some desire to see our buildings handle extreme weather conditions and be weather resilient or climate resilient. Education resources and programs, some desire there for expanded programs as it relates to things like French immersion or supports for gifted students, and ensuring that there are a good number of healthy resources to assist in teacher preparation. Also a desire in this area of student supports with diverse needs, just advocating for more funding and ensuring that we're providing supports for those requiring additional assistance and help. On the lens of community and industry partnerships, just strengthening those partnerships that we've developed and hoping to leverage things like donations and volunteer programs. Under arts, athletics, and extracurricular programming, seeing more and enhanced funding and supports for these areas. And finally, under curriculum and education approach, just encouraging the board to consider focusing on core subject areas such as mathematics. I'll skip over to the survey results for your convenience. I actually included the full questions because the way that the survey results are presented sort of give you a snippet, but you're not able to see the full response. And so I ensured that I captured that in the background report. So hopefully that was convenient for you. What we saw in our respondents was that most respondents were parents and caregivers, followed by district staff members, most identified as being most connected with elementary, then followed by middle and secondary schools. In terms of learning priorities, we saw a clear preference or distinction for ensuring instruction, assessment, and reporting practices align with curriculum and the meeting of diverse needs of students as the most preferred priority area for our consideration this year. This was followed by ensuring continued improvement in the delivery of educational services to students with diverse abilities and disabilities. And number 3, there in the purple, a priority to see improved literacy learning outcomes. On the area of opportunities in schools, we can see that the preference there is for your consideration of counseling and mental health supports, followed by food programs, as well as a tie somewhat between athletic related programs and arts and related programs and technology. In terms of supporting growth, most of our respondents supported the notion of having more innovative solutions outside of simply utilizing portables, which we know it represents a fairly significant drain on the operating budget. On operational priorities, respondents clearly favored improving our facilities and also ensuring that we have improved staff recruitment and retention strategies. Those were the top 2 by far in terms of operational priorities this year. And board advocacy, clear top 2 in terms of what respondents indicated would be a preference for the board to continue to work on, which is the expediting of funding approval for capital projects and raising the awareness for the per student funding. That pretty much concludes the report. Trustees will have saw in their board packages outside of this public piece a more robust detailing of the comments that respondents had provided. I thematically summed them up here, but trustees had a little bit more detail in their packages. If you have any questions, I would be happy to respond to them.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions, comments about the budget survey? Go ahead, Trustee Sluice.
Yeah, thanks for compiling this, Bettina. And a big thank you to our community who participated in the survey. I think this response rate was awesome. Also really happy to see so much alignment with the survey. With what the requests we heard from partners tonight. There's a lot of crossover there, which is great. And I know while this was a budget survey, there's actually a lot of connections to the strategic plan we're going to be looking at a little bit later. I think all of this information, the requests from partners, the survey results is going to be very helpful in our deliberations. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Andres.
Saw an interesting comment in the extended comments, and I was curious about its response. And I understand you might not be able to answer it right now, but it was asking a question about partnerships with industry partners or business partners who could potentially donate equipment or these kinds of services. And I was just wondering if either the district or the ministry have guidelines or regulations in place around that.
I don't know if the ministry does. However, we have an AP on that for corporate sponsorship. So we have guidelines set forth within one of our newly modified APs surrounding corporate sponsorship. To my understanding, we don't have many of them, and that's probably an area that we would like to see in future leveraged a little bit more. So excited to work with schools if they have any ideas to be brought forward, or even our leadership team on how we might be able to do that.
Just a follow-up to that, do we have that kind of expertise in-house, people who have those kind of that kind of experience before they're working at the district, or who we've brought in who have that experience at the district?
I pushed the wrong button. I don't know of internal expertise. I know that there are agencies that will, for a fee, help you connect with industry and seek grants from them and those kinds of things. I've worked with that kind of agency in the past, in a past central office role, but I don't have direct experience. I should say members of my staff had direct experience doing that in a past district. I have not. Geraldine, do you?
I have direct experience myself in my former district in working with industry and getting quite a significant amount of funding to support what we had laid out in strategic plan. So I'm fairly comfortable with that sort of work.
Who knew? That's great. That's great to hear. Any other questions, suggestions? Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Trustee Andre.
I'm curious as well if when we're into the budgeting phase for potentially the board's in-service, if we could have like the costs that have increased. So we had mentioned a couple of times costs that had increased but haven't been met with an increase in funding. So we had mentioned, inflationary costs. We had mentioned benefit costs. I was wondering if for the board, if those could be broken out so we could really clearly see those items. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It was really interesting because today we were talking about how to break out those pieces for budget in service so that you could see what things had the most significant impact on budget. It's interesting you raised it because we're talking about how do we break it out so that it's easier to see.
And maybe if you could just recap for us that the board will be, we'll have an in-service briefing in April. We're aiming for a draft budget. Can you just remind folks maybe when it would come back here?
Sure. So the board has an opportunity to meet with senior staff at pretty much immediately after spring break. A week later, forgive me, I don't have the exact dates handy, but a week later after the board in service is an opportunity to connect with our coordinating committee, which consists of all our partner groups, many of who have presented this evening. And further to that, there will be an opportunity again at the end of April to have the superintendent's recommendations on the 25-26 budget. That is April 29th.
Okay, great. Thank you. That takes us then to, I put myself down to provide a BC provincial budget update, which will be very brief because it was sort of good news and bad news. I watched the announcement, and as you will all know now, I was relieved to see that current funding was protected. There is increased spending in education across the province, but of course, governments like to say they're spending more dollars. That's because there's more students and it's driven by a formula, as well as driven by the contractual relationships. What I do really appreciate is that there has been a consistent commitment to funding the costs of wages and benefits that are negotiated so far pretty much across the board. Which is huge, and I think some nod to inflation. There was talk in the budgets as well as when the minister spoke to BC Education Partners meeting about some new priorities, one being literacy and numeracy supports that sounded like the potential of some additional targeted funds. But that's all a little bit of a guess. But the good news, I suppose, is that the education funding grants announcement is coming a couple of days early, and we are expecting that, I believe, tomorrow. Superintendents and secretary treasurers, Thursday. Okay, it keeps moving. Friday, Wednesday, Thursday. By the end of the week, we will know the funding grants coming from the ministry. So to be continued. We know that in the district that we still have our challenges around our accumulated surplus reserve and having subsidized some of our costs historically and needing to correct that. But it's good to know that we're not, that we're still supported provincially at the same level, at least. That's my update. Happy to hear any suggestion, comments. Otherwise, we'll press on to old business, and so pleased to see Trustee Sluice bring forward the 2025-2030 strategic plan for adoption, which she has doggedly led us through to get us to the point of a draft strategic plan, or I think a final strategic plan.
Well, we'll see, I guess. Yeah. So the New West Schools 2025-2030 strategic plan embodies a collective vision shaped by the voices of our students, our families, staff, and community partners. It's got a commitment to equity, inclusion, and excellence, and it's going to chart a clear path forward to empower every learner and strengthen our district's capacity to meet the challenges and opportunities of the future. We've considered key challenges such as student outcomes, staff capacity and retention, infrastructure deficits, safety, mental health, and well-being. We have a new vision, an inspired learning community, a new mission, champion lifelong learning through enriching educational experiences, a refreshed set of values that include connection, empathy, resiliency, and curiosity, and 3 focus areas: a student experience, where our goal is to foster an inclusive learning community where every student has the opportunity and supports to reach their full potential. Caring and supportive systems is our second focus area, where our goal is to cultivate a healthy school community for students, staff, families, and caregivers. And our final focus area is sustainable organization, where our goal is to enhance organizational resilience and adaptability that results in thriving school communities. To bring this vision to life, New West Schools will implement annual plans throughout the strategic plan period and evaluate success through key indicators. Grounded in shared values and strengthened by meaningful collaboration, we are ready to continue cultivating an educational environment that inspires, empowers, and uplifts every learner. So you have a copy of the proposed strategic plan in your package, and I would love to open the floor now for comments. And then we will move to a motion to adopt if we are there.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of work to get to this point. Any comments, trustees, about the final plan, which is here for adoption? Trustee Slynn.
Yeah, I think it looks great. And I also just want to commend Trustee Sluice and everybody that sat around the table, Roots and Rivers, for like the honest dialogue that we had in shaping this, because I think it really signals where we are and where we want to go, and like what we hope for all of the students in New West Schools. So I I think it's great, and I don't have anything negative to say.
Awesome. I also just really enjoyed the conversations we had. I thought we asked ourselves some really, really tough questions about, what is really important, what makes a difference, what can we put in writing that can be measured, that isn't just nice wording that makes us feel good, but really makes a difference and hopefully provides some guidance as a system and is true to what we heard. So yeah, I feel really good about where we've landed. I think these are specific, real, sort of tangible, measurable things, and I'm very excited really to see where our team takes it. I know we have an incredible leadership team here, so I can't wait to hand it over and see what the beginning of implementation looks like. Trustee Carlson.
I was just going to say, I really appreciated the work that we all did together. And I really like that they put in the plan what success looks like so it can be measured. I feel that's been missing in past plans.
Great. Okay, well then I think the hope here is we would like to adopt this thing. So if I could maybe ask for a motion to adopt the 2025 to 2030 what are we calling it? Strategic plan. That would be great. Then it would go to, there's graphic design and fancying up that's going to happen. So if I could, that's been moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Boom. Great. Thank you, everybody. We're at trustee highlights, where there is a voluntary opportunity to share some of the work that you've been doing at boards, PACs, committees. Open the floor to anybody. Trustee Sluice.
Just one really quick update. I am reporting back on the BCSTA motion on portables. I've been in conversation with the BCSTA. They are suggesting that this motion is not sufficiently different enough from past motions related to portables. I've made what I think is a strong case for having this move through to the AGM. But I expect a response later this week, and I will update trustees on where that's at.
Wonderful. Thank you. Trustee Connolly.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that we did have our first committee of the whole meeting, and I just wanted to thank everybody who participated, our district partners. I think that it was a great start, and I'm looking forward to the work that's going to be accomplished through that committee. So thank you.
Awesome. Trustee Carlson, and then I got you, Trustee Andres.
Thank you. I was happy to attend the BCSTA ELL Consortium on March 5th, where the focus was the Policy and Procedures Manual Section 7, students with different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. The discussion was basically what works and what's missing in this policy, and we found there was a lot more that was missing than what worked. So it was a good start to updating this, and I'll keep you updated when it gets changed. I ended that day having the honor of attending the opening of Mamma Mia. And I'd like to congratulate everybody involved with this production, the staff, the crew, the musicians, performers. It was incredible. And I felt very honored to be able to watch it. Thank you.
Awesome. Trustee Andres.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up some stuff from the BCSTA for fellow trustees. So the BCSTA's Inclusion and Accessibility Working Group has published a report on improving student outcomes for students with disabilities and diverse abilities. And it is Autism Awareness Month coming up, and it is budget season. And I do recommend that my fellow trustees please read through the report. It has some really timely and I think important suggestions for our consideration as we enter this season. And just on that same note, we have our AGM coming up in April, so before our next open meeting. So hopefully Trustee Salusa's motion on behalf of our district will be part of that discussion. But I look forward to, along with my alternate here, Trustee Carlson, bringing forward our report afterwards about the business that's happens there and what we get to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I got everybody. I'll just provide a quick report as from the chair that in addition to some provincial meetings, I attended the Kite Pack meeting, which I am really enjoying, learning about that very busy school. And we've been talking at that pack about crossing guards. I wasn't aware of how challenging it is to fill all of our crossing guard positions, and that unfortunately there are even days where we don't have a crossing guard. So it's a matter that I've been asking the superintendent about whether, the parents from the school had some suggestions around targeting the postings to a particular neighborhood instead of them being citywide to make it a bit more accessible, as well as just where we might post those. So I was wondering, Superintendent Davidson, if you wouldn't mind just sharing that for everybody as well.
I think maybe Robert, you maybe.
There you go. I am green now. Very definitely, this does present. It is a challenging position to fill for because it is so few hours each day, and it has a very targeted market that is interested in that type of work. So it has always been a tough, difficult position to fill for. But we are exploring now expanding our advertising and marketing of those positions and looking at all opportunities that we can to get other markets and to find others that would be interested in those. So it's very much on our radar. We do at this point in time now have a number of applications that we're going to be going through and doing some interviews in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll be able to alleviate some of the pressure in the next couple of weeks, but it's certainly an area that we will be trying to expand our recruitment.
Thank you very much. And I know that your department was also very, very swamped with just workload. And so I know you've just had an addition to that team. So we're hoping that will help as well. Can I just ask if the idea of targeting by school or location, is that something we're able to do? And did that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And definitely reaching out and working through the PACs, for example, would be a great opportunity for us. But you're quite correct in your last observation is that we have been focusing the last month or so, particularly on the hard to fill positions in teaching, the LST positions, counseling, etc. That has been our focus. And we have now switched to some of the other positions that we'll be looking for. So, but very definitely looking at specific areas of various neighborhoods to recruit will be a part of our initiative.
Thank you very much. Trustee Connolly?
Just along those lines, I know that the Queensborough Middle School PAC has also brought this to my attention, and I brought it to the attention of the superintendent, and there were some issues that along the same lines. So I think that they would certainly be open to helping advertise for those positions as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Superintendent Davidson?
I know that Jane had indicated to me the other day that she has sent advertisements to schools to put in their newsletters so that those advertisements can go out to families who live and who just send their children to school from that community. So I'm hoping that has an impact as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. The things that we learn great things at PAC meetings. Thanks, everybody. And that takes us to question period, where we welcome questions to the chair on matters that arose during the meeting, either anybody who's here in person or online. And it sounds like we might have somebody online. So yeah, I see Tricia Rankin-Sebastian, if you want to just unmute and go ahead.
Hi, I live here in New Westminster. I've been in contact with the superintendent and his vice principal regarding some of the issues that I wanted to talk about. Some things that I wanted to point out very quickly. with regards to the letter to the city, I believe that the phrase at this time is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that letter. And I think that speaking specifically with respect to making sure that everything is clear, I think that the inclusion of the phrase at this time does sufficiently note that even though it is included in your long range facilities plan, within the prospect of the context of considering a motion that will be at the next city council meeting, I think that the words at this time does cover the fact that they are speaking specifically of the motion that may be proposed at an upcoming city council meeting. And therefore, I do believe that the sentence does not need to be struck as a result. The other thing I want to note regarding the other thing I'd like to note is that I really appreciated hearing from the delegations and the representatives of QP and the DPAC and other things. And I wanted to, I guess, if I have only a minute and 30 seconds left, I want to speak specifically to the DPAC's secondary ask about pausing technology refreshing in favor of meeting primary asks. And the thing that I want to stress is that I currently work as a level 1 tech support in a small business here in Canada. And I do understand that if you delay technology hardware, especially if you delay technology hardware refreshes, catastrophic things like can happen, such as server failures, cascading server failures that can just completely wreck every system. And if you are putting off those hardware asks because they are not considered to be part of like something upcoming, as in like we only have X number of Chromebooks to pass out, but if you're delaying things like important infrastructure things like server hardware or other pieces of hardware that are aging out and need to be replaced or have been no longer getting upgrades because the major system is no longer providing upgrades and to the firmware. Those need, I think that asking the district to pause those technology refreshes is a mistake, and I would request that the DPAC reconsider, or at least the board reconsider that secondary ask. And that's my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You've made a number of excellent points. Certainly some of the things that we weigh absolutely when making those budget decisions. Do I have any other speakers or questions? Yes, go ahead. Give you a second to get to the table. You want to just reintroduce yourself, please? Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Laura Kwong, DPAC Chair. I just want to acknowledge real quick that coming up from March 17th to March 23rd is Neurodiversity Celebration Week. In our district, around 11% of students identify as having diverse abilities. So it's over spring break, I know. Even a social media post, parents who have extra challenges getting their kids to school, keeping them in school, a little acknowledgement of celebrating their students, I think is very well received. Yeah, that's it. DPAC didn't really have an update this month. We don't have a meeting in March, but we are meeting again in April and have a special presentation from Kaya Health, and it is covering the topic of building a healthy relationship with food and your body for youth. And we also have a special guest speaker at our meeting from the City of New West, who is a new hire there, working on active transportation. And we're going to talk about transportation safety in and around schools and safe active transportation for students. And yeah, that's coming up at our April meeting, which is virtual only, as it falls on a Pro D day. And yeah, thank you very much. That's it from DPAC.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome update. Go ahead.
Do you have a date for the Building Healthy Relationships event?
April. It's the third Thursday in April. I want to say like the 20th. Where's my calendar? Is it? Okay. Thanks.
We have the list of DPAC meeting
Yeah.
dates and I will send that
On the
out.
front of our webpage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do need a trustee to attend that one. Thank you so much. That takes us to notice of meetings. Our next regular board meeting is after spring break. Oh, quite a ways after, on Tuesday, April 29th. I think we do have a committee of the whole in early April on April the 8th as well. Oh, that's in camera. Okay, right. Okay, sorry, that's a budget briefing. Never mind. We are to report out from our in-camera board meeting. There's a record of the proceedings of our February 25th, 2025 in-camera meeting. Would like to also say incredible job about Mamma Mia. Those educators are rock stars and those kids are so talented. Holy Hannah. I was going to suggest that the trustees perform an ensemble and anyway, that's not happening. You're all spared. Yeah, we're at adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you so much. Good evening and see you in April. And the board will be reconvening in camera in 5 minutes.